what they say. Good teams win, but great teams, they cover. Welcome in to the Spring Break College Football Show. This is your favorite ball knower's favorite ball knowing show. Today is Monday, December 22nd. It is a one-show week for you all. The first time in a long time that we've done just one show in a week. I want to make sure before we get too much further in that I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Because of Christmas being later in the week, because I'll be traveling to upstate New York, and because we do not have any college football playoff games this weekend, there's no need for us to try and force in a preview show. When we went up for Thanksgiving, it was rivalry weekend. There was a lot to discuss. I recorded a show at my mom's living room, and I hated every second of it. The setup was weird. The editing was weird. Didn't like it. Thankfully, we don't have to do that this week. We don't have to force in a second show on Tuesday. We will be back next Monday doing quarterfinal previews. All of that stuff will be saved till next week since we have until New Year's for the second round of the college football playoffs. But on today's show, we will obviously talk Alabama's come from behind victory over Oklahoma, of which I did predict incorrectly. We will talk Miami's gritty victory over Texas A&M, of which I did predict correctly. And we'll also talk about the resolution I came to this morning surrounding the G5 level of competition and its deserved place in college football. We, of course, will do all of that while also having the very best time of our lives. But before we can get the show started, like with every show, I have to ask you at the top to please support this show. If you are watching on YouTube, first of all, thank you. This is my preferred method of consumption. If you are consuming this show, you'll notice on the YouTubes, we got a little bit of a different setup today. We've swapped out the very cool, but kind of random, stony basketball with a commemorative JMU College Football Playoff 2026 football. This is now one of the 5 coolest things that I own in my possession. We're very JMU decked out today. If you're on the YouTubes, the setup's always been JMU football helmet. And now we've got the JMU football. And I'm wearing a JMU cutoff today. So we're very dookied out. Probably won't wear JMU gear that much more because of that. It makes us feel like we're a JMU show. Anywho, if you're watching on the YouTube, thank you for supporting us there. Make sure to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Hit refresh a couple of times. Get that view count up. I appreciate your support on there. If you're listening, Spotify, Apple, sorry you're missing the cool JMU setup we have, but make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star review, share it amongst your peers. And again, head to the socials at Spring Break CFB. That is both Twitter and TikTok, and support us there. All right. Let's get into the show. Alabama did the damn thing, scratching and clawing themselves out of the jaws of defeat that a 17-0 early deficit usually entails. But they found a 27-0 run to take down the Sooners at the Palace on the Prairie. Final score is 34-24. This game had so many lives to it. The first obviously being that early 17-0 Oklahoma lead. Oklahoma got a little bit of everything in that stretch. They were getting pressure on Ty Simpson. They were bottling up the Alabama ground game. They forced the Tide into 3 straight 3-and-outs. And then meanwhile, for the offense, you got some gritty runs from Mateer, some sharp throws from his arm. Tate Sendell connects on a 51-yard field goal. It took Oklahoma just 4 drives to march out to that 17-point lead, and it was on drives that lasted 9, 8, 6, and 8 plays. It wasn't, like this systematic 12, 15-play drive, but they were just marching down the field, putting points on the board. But then you blinked before half, and it was all tied up. You got a 75-yard touchdown drive from the Crimson Tide. You had a blocked punt that led to an Alabama field goal, and then a really bad pick 6 from John Mateer that shifted everything. That was chapter 2 of the game, and that extended into the second half. Now, remember me just mentioning that Oklahoma started the game with 4 drives of 6 or more plays. Listen to how their drives ended after that point. Blocked punt, like I mentioned. Interception, like I mentioned. Halftime. Come out in the second half. Punt, touchdown. Punt, missed field goal. Tate Sendell your favorite kicker's favorite kicker, the only kicker to ever get his name mentioned on this show, lost all of his juice down the stretch. It made things even harder for Oklahoma as they tried to get off the mat. Tate Sendell, man, I was all over live action on this game. When Oklahoma marched out to the 17-0 lead, I was like, well, Alabama plus 14.5. They're going to pull this thing back in, get it close. So hit that one, thankfully. But then as Alabama took the lead, Oklahoma was staring at me plus 7.5. And I was like, okay, I think we can get a double dipper in this and just hit two live bets. And of course, Tate Sendell missing 2 field goals just butchered that. But regardless, back to the game. Box scores between these two teams are so funny to look at. In the regular season, it was Alabama that dominated the stat sheets, but lost the game. The Tide were the better team on third down in that one, less penalized. They doubled up Oklahoma on third downs, dominated the time of possession, ran 24 more plays. But this time around, all of that flipped into Oklahoma's favor, but at the expense of actually winning the game. Oklahoma went 7 of 18 on third down, Alabama just 2 of 12. Oklahoma outpossessed the Tide, punted less, ran 21 more plays. Hell, even for a bad Oklahoma ground game, they doubled up Alabama's output on the ground. But turnovers, field position, and special teams sealed their fate, just like it had happened for Alabama in that regular season matchup. There will come a time for me to do postmortems on a lot of these teams. I want to try and preserve that for later in the year when we have less games to actually talk about. But to briefly state my case on Oklahoma's 2025 season, incredibly impressed. You know, this was a team that at the beginning of the year I had enough faith in to predict them as a team to make the college football playoffs, which they did, despite having a gauntlet of an SEC schedule staring at their face. The addition of John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle was a 10 out of 10 move, something I'd expect to be better, even better in 2026 once Mateer is actually given time to recover from that thumb surgery. I know he came back in 17 days. I know he played the rest of the season. You watch the thrower before and after, and you get a little bit more context on what that injury actually is. It's about a year until you're back as your normal self. And despite all that, they still did enough to get into the college football playoffs on offense. What it comes down to for Oklahoma, tailbacks, offensive line. Big issues now, and for consecutive seasons. So whether that needs to be adjusted by some positional coaches or personnel again, you need to find a way to have a balanced offense if you want to take that next leap in 2026. I will always have faith in Brent Venables having one of the best defenses in the country. It was certainly that this year. I will have faith in John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle next year as the OC quarterback for this Sooner offense. Offensive line and tailback. Got to figure it out. To me, more importantly, it's the offensive line. I think tailback, you can get by with some of the guys you had there. They obviously, quick sidebar, if anybody out there can tell me what happened with Jaden Knott and what the story is behind that, maybe it's just transitioning from the ACC to the SEC and him not being what we thought he was. But Jaden Knott, he was projected if he went to the NFL draft. Some people thought of him as a top 100 pick in the NFL last year. Transfers to Oklahoma. Oklahoma desperately needs tailback performance, and he didn't provide anything. One of the biggest mysteries in the sport this year. But all that said, still an incredibly impressive season. A statement type year for Brent Venables, who entered the year. People were like, "Is he on the hot seat? What can he prove to us?" He proved a lot this year, and I have a lot of faith in the direction that Oklahoma is heading in. They've got a great GM, they've got a good head coach, and a really talented roster. So I know it didn't finish the way they had wanted it to, but despite everything that kind of was going up against them, to still make it into the playoffs, to still be within that game against a good Alabama team, good season. Good season for the Sooners. And look, for Alabama, a win's a win. You never complain about winning. Game ball goes to Kane Womack. He did a phenomenal job at adjusting this defense on the fly to slow down Oklahoma. Early on, the Alabama defense was just sitting back in coverage, only bringing 4, and you just saw drop back after drop back how much time Mateer had in the pocket, which allowed his playmakers to eventually get loose down the field, and Mateer was able to hit him for a chunk play, or maybe he was able to scramble and pick up some yards with his feet. It was just so easy. And I think after that 17-0 deficit and realizing how easy of a time the Sooners were having, Womack was like, all right, we got to start dialing up some pressure. We got to bring some heat. We got to disguise some stuff. And that changed everything in this day. Applying pressure to Mateer, applying pressure on this bad offensive line, and getting Mateer off his game was so huge in swinging the momentum. Obviously, the pick six plays a huge role into that, but you just saw at whatever point Womack was like, all right, rushing with 4 is not the solution here. We need to dial up some heat. That changed the momentum for this game and played a huge role. Now, one thing that I find interesting coming off of this game, I've sat on this for the last couple of days now, hearing about people really hype up what they saw from the Alabama offense, what they saw from Ty Simpson. They're like, hey, this offense looked like it was back in its, mid-October form. I don't know if I saw that. Now, yes, you put up some points. You got a good, against a good defense. I thought Ty Simpson looked better than he had in the previous weeks before, but, still completing just 62% of his passes in that game. He got sacked 4 times. I'm not ready to say like, ooh, Alabama's starting to peak again. I thought that was a lot to do with field position, turnover, special teams miscues. Alabama certainly did get off the mat. You can't just go in and march back from a 17-0 deficit by doing nothing on offense. But as we try and project where this team is going to go in the playoffs, I still don't think they have enough juice. Offensive line is worrisome. Tailback room is still bad. Wide receiver room, like getting Cuevas back on a snap count was good. I thought he looked good in his role. Jeremy Bernard is still fantastic. Alatzir Brooks is a good player for them as well. There needs to be a Ryan Williams game if Alabama is going to do anything serious in this postseason. But yeah, 2 for 12 on third down. 28 rushing yards. That's not going to get it done against an Indiana. That's not going to get it done against anybody that's remaining left in the college football playoffs. And look, this is a team I predicted to win it all in the preseason. But I think they peaked far too early in the year. And I would be pretty surprised as we start to look ahead if they somehow make it out of the quarterfinal round with a victory. And I believe they're sitting as what? They're like 6.5 point underdogs in that one against Indiana. It's not like totally out of the realm of possibility, but I don't leave that game being like, wow, Ty Simpson's back to October form, or like, look at that passing game. It was Oklahoma just made a lot of mistakes, and I think Alabama did a good job taking advantage of it. I don't know if the best teams in college football are gonna make those kind of mistakes. That was my thoughts on that game. I do want to spend a small portion of today's show talking about what we saw from our G5 friends this past weekend. Tulane loses to Ole Miss by 31. James Madison loses to Oregon by 17, which, hey, great teams cover, but it sounds better when you say they lost by 17 than when you actually watch the game. Look, I find myself to be in a very unique position. I do a national college football show, but I am also an alum and fan of one of the best G5 teams this nation has to offer. I loved getting to see JMU on the national stage. A decade ago, we were in the FCS title game my freshman year at James Madison. I am so deeply, profoundly proud of the growth this university has experienced since that time. You will never be able to take away the feeling I had sitting on my couch watching a game in Eugene, Oregon, a college football playoff game be kicked off where James Madison was the opponent. You can't take it away from the players. You can't take it away from the coaching staff, the fans. It was an incredible moment. Hell, you'll never be able to pry this commemorative JMU playoff football out of my hands. Like, this thing is fucking beautiful. Came to me blown up. Got it on the day of the game, too. Like, oh, I hope I set this back in the right spot now. Like, you will not be able to take that away from me. Is that right? We're going to get the right angle. Oh, no! If you guys are listening on podcasts, I'm sorry. If you're watching on YouTube, I hope it was at least funny. But despite the pride, happiness, joy that those moments gave me, I do not think it's right for this sport to guarantee playoff spots for G5 teams. And I think I want to officially put all of my eggs into a G5 playoff basket. I just think that there needs to be a certain amount of resistance that your schedule puts you through from September to December to earn you a spot as a playoff team. And frankly, a G5 schedule just does not give you those battles. You'll get your one Power 4 game, maybe a second one. JMU's this year was against a Louisville team that they lost to by 14. Tulane was up against Ole Miss, for that first time in what was a similar blowout. I just don't think that it's right to be able to let a certain team go through a schedule that was as easy as JMU's or Tulane's and to do well while they're at it, but then just say, yes, you are guaranteed a spot. Here's what I think the fix should be. I think you should assemble a similar, smaller playoff bracket for the best G5 teams in the country, and that will play a huge role in reviving bowl season. I think if you got another pool of playoff games and said, we're going to put them at this bowl and that bowl and that bowl, giving G5 teams a little bit something more to play for at the end of the season will get fan bases excited. Will get, fans in the seats, in the stadium for what will be big games for them. Now, you will still allow those G5 teams to qualify for the college football playoffs, but as at-large bids, not automatic qualifiers. And then when those off chances happen, say like a Boise State of last year where they finished the year, 11-1, 12-1 with the conference championship, they played Oregon close, you're like, hey, that looks like one of the 12 best teams in the country. Say they qualify as a top 12 seed and at-large bid into the playoffs. You then give them the choice. You say, if you want, come on up, prove your worth with the big boys, but you also have the opportunity to decline and choose to compete at the G5 level for what would be a G5 championship. I think in doing so, you accomplish so many different issues with what those last two games and what the Boise run last year did. You'll give G5 teams an actual realistic title to compete for. You won't kick them entirely to the curb by giving them a chance to opt in if they do so earn an at-large bid. You will provide extra spots for actual Power 4 teams that probably should deserve to be in. Come on. Notre Dame probably should have been in over a James Madison or a Tulane. Let me get through my point. And then you'll also hopefully put a little bit more juice in a bowl season. I think you accomplish a lot of goals by just saying like, hey, let's take this for what it is. We'll still give you the option if you qualify as an at-large, but we'll also give you guys something that you can tangibly say at the end of the season you want to compete for, or you think you'll actually have a legit shot to compete for. There's not a G5 that's going to win the national title. Ever. So why would we give them an automatic spot? It just doesn't make sense. I had so much fun. I loved it as a JMU fan. It was one of the coolest things I've gotten to witness for this team over the last decade. At the same time, I think I'd still enjoy a G5 playoff. I'd still enjoy, how many times we spend talking smack with the American this year? How many times we had to argue how good JMU was against Tulane or North Texas as it pertained to the playoff rankings? Put us on a field against each other. Make us go on a bracket against, some of the best G6 teams in the country. I think that would provide a ton of juice, especially if you gave them bowl games. It just would make it really fun and exciting. So that's where I stand on it. Had a lot of fun, but for the sport as a whole, I think there needs to be a pretty quick adjustment to it. I hope everybody will be like, hey, a rational JMU fan. Because I got to say, I have a lot of friends that are talking heads on Twitter, and they're so mad about all the people saying, like, JMU didn't deserve to be in. JMU deserved to be in under the current criteria. I just think the criteria is wrong. That's where I stand on it. Give us a G5 playoff, put it in bowl games, give us the option to compete for a national title if we're a top 12 seed, but also give us the option to say, like, hey, we'd rather just compete for a G5 national championship because we actually probably think we could win it there. That's where I land. And hey, who told you that this one was going to happen? Miami marches into Kyle Field, takes down Texas A&M. Final score is a gross, gritty 10-3. What a hilarious game this ended up being. Now, obviously, you're not laughing if you're an Aggie fan. It's a devastating way to finish off your season. But I could not believe what I was watching between both the poor quarterback play we got from both teams, the 4 missed field goals. It was like, oh my God, does either team want to win? What the game came down to was who was man enough in the trenches. Miami completely shut down the Aggies' ground game, keeping them under 100 yards for just the second time this season. Meanwhile, the Canes ran it for 175 yards, 172 of those on the back of Mark Fletcher Jr. Marcel Reed was sacked 7 times in this game. I think Carson Beck was sacked just twice. We nailed this game on the head. And by we, I mean me. There is not a mouse in my pocket or somebody else in this room outside my dog who's sleeping on the bed. I thought Miami was the better team up front. I thought they had the offense and the quarterback I trusted more. And despite going 3 of 12 on third downs, fumbling the ball away, missing 3 field goals, and losing the time of possession battle, they still dominated the game because of their success up front. And then defensively, just as it's been all season, Corey Heatherman put on an absolute clinic as the play caller for this Miami defense. I know that Marcel Reed did throw for 237 in this game, but was held below completion rate. Sorry, was held below a 65% completion rate for the 8th time this season. He had 2 turnovers for the 4th time in his last 6 FBS games. Couple explosives that they hit on, but not too many. All of this was stuff that I said was playing into Miami's favor. I thought Miami would do a good job halting the Aggie ground game. I thought they would get to the quarterback. I didn't think that Marcel Reed was going to be hitting explosive after explosive through the air. I just thought that this played in, and you didn't need Carson Beck to have a great game. And look, he didn't have a great game. Carson Beck was pretty rough in this one. You also had a kicker that missed 3 field goals, and despite all that, you still walk away with the victory. So, great win for Miami. Great win for Mario Cristobal. The steady ascension, what you're getting in Miami out of Cristobal is what you'd hope for. 5 wins, 7 wins, back-to-back 10-win seasons. This one with a playoff victory, a chance to compete for a national title for another weekend. Great growth here at Miami, and you're starting to see kind of the just churning out. This is probably the biggest win for Miami in the last 2 decades. So hats off to the Canes. Hopefully they can continue that on. Really tough game against Ohio State, but again, when you're one of the 2-3 best teams up front, you're always going to have a shot to win games because of that. Now for Texas A&M, and that's where we'll finish today's show. It's history repeated itself right in front of your face, but with way more false hope this time around. I'm not sure which collapse hurt more. My guess, and I'm saying last year's to this year's. Last year's, you lose 3 of the last 4 down the stretch. You miss the SEC title game. You miss the playoffs. This time around, you start the season 11-0, but then you lose to Texas, miss the SEC title game, miss a first-round bye, and then you lose a home playoff game 10-3. I think this one hurts a little bit more just because of the start and middle parts of it. To get that high in consecutive seasons and to struggle to get to the finish line 2 years in a row, not sure what needs to be changed there. And there's going to be a lot that's changing. The staff completely overhauled. The offensive coordinator is now gone. The defensive coordinator is now gone. You had some seniors on this team that will be heading to the NFL or ending their time at College Station. Like, a lot is about to change for the Aggies. But their inability to finish 2 years in a row now is really concerning. I do think that Texas A&M provides us a little bit of a litmus test. And it's funny, it's almost like the SEC level of it where, we looked at JMU's schedule all year and we were like, yeah, they haven't played anybody. They lost to Louisville by 14. Like, why are we doing this? You could say that for Notre Dame, who is an independent. They played 2 tough games, but outside of that, you're like, yeah, okay. What's that? Texas A&M, an SEC team, got a pretty favorable schedule this year. I think they played just about the entire bottom half of the SEC. They obviously had the tough game in Notre Dame, which was a big win there for them. I don't want to take anything away from what they accomplished this year, but it's almost like context matters in this sport. And the context was telling us like, yeah, Texas A&M, it hasn't been pretty. They haven't played that many great teams. And then, oh, wait, they got Texas and they lose. Okay, well, Miami, and they lose and they put up 3 points. It's like, all right, maybe this team wasn't as great as we thought they were. Marcel Reed. Really interesting case study with Marcel Reed. And kind of Colin Klein as a whole. 2 years in a row now with some shaky quarterback play for the Aggies. I don't feel too great about Texas A&M's ability to develop quarterbacks. Connor Wegman, my favorite player in the sport. I was so in on him with the Aggies in 2024. He just didn't develop. And he got benched eventually for Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed finished out the season. They were like, all right, we're team Marcel Reed. Connor Wegman, leave. Connor Wegman goes to Houston. And I know it's a step back in competition going from the SEC to the Big 12, but Connor Wegman was a better quarterback this season. He lit it up. The Cougars were a 9-win team in his first season as the starter there. Again, I know he didn't have to play in SEC defense every week, but he was phenomenal. He took the developments. He saw the improved play that I was expecting he would get at Texas A&M. And meanwhile, Marcel Reed didn't really take that much of a step forward. Like he was good down the field. Accuracy is spotty. Turnovers were bad. Multi-turnover games in 4 of his final 6. Good athlete. I'm very curious to see how they approach the quarterback position this offseason because Colin Klein, offensive coordinator, is now off to Kansas State to be the head coach. Kind of worries me a little bit that he hasn't done a great job developing quarterbacks over the last 2 years. Maybe it wasn't a him problem. Maybe it's the quarterback's problem. I'm very curious to see what this team will look like next year at the quarterback position because you sent one guy away and he had a pretty damn good season. Meanwhile, the guy that you invested in didn't take that next step. Very interesting times in Texas A&M. There's a lot to figure out. You got a whole staff you have to redo. You're going to lose some very talented players along your offensive line, your defensive line, your tailbacks. Like, this was a really good window, and it's not over because you're Texas A&M. You're always going to churn out high-quality rosters, recruiting classes, transfers, all that sort of stuff. But what the staff looks like, what the quarterback position looks like is going to be massive for this team if they want to take the next step. Because the next step, like you're 11-1. You made the college football playoffs. The next step is competing for an SEC title, like playing in the conference title game. That should be the next step. And I don't know. I don't know if we'll look back a year or two now at Texas A&M and be like, man, they really missed a great window that they had there. And what it came down to was quarterback development, really. That's all I got for you guys today. I don't know how we're doing on time. This thing's off. Oh, okay. Actually, great. I have to go to work. As I mentioned, one show week. We'll be back next Monday previewing the quarterfinal games, talking about any news that happens then. If you're desperate for some Spring Blake content in the meantime, head over to TikTok. We're going to do some more social clips this week instead of show stuff just because there's not a whole lot to say. So we'll put stuff out on there. Thank you again for your support. Again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, 5-star reviews if you're listening on Spotify, Apple. I love you. I appreciate you. Merry Christmas, and I'll talk to you next week. Peace.